What's up guys, Pedro here with Syzygy Coffee. I hope you're doing fantastic. Today I want to talk about a question that I get asked quite often, and it is, why is specialty coffee so expensive? Why is it that I'm buying a bag of coffee for $5, $6, $7 at the supermarket, and this guy is selling me a bag of coffee for, I don't know, $15, $18, $25? So what gives? And today I want to explain the reason why specialty coffee in general is going to be more expensive than traditional store-bought coffee. Now, before I dive into what goes behind specialty coffee, because I've covered that in other videos, but I'll try to go over the most important aspects of it in this video, is I'm going to give you guys an analogy. When you go to the supermarket and you're going to buy beef, you see a little logo that says USDA Prime or USDA Choice. And USDA Prime is generally more expensive. Why? Because it's higher quality beef. USDA Choice, it's not bad, but it's not the same quality, the same taste, the same tenderness. There's a lot more work that goes behind USDA Prime beef than there is for USDA Choice beef. And the same is true for other types of food. I know that with extra virgin olive oil is supposed to be the highest grade of olive oil versus normal olive oil or olive oil with other types of oil mixed in. Another analogy would be with honey. There is raw honey or pasteurized honey. And raw honey is supposed to maintain and keep all the nutrients and all the good stuff from the honey before you go and consume it. Whereas pasteurized honey, since there's not a lot of work being done to process that honey, they'll go ahead and pasteurize it and you lose a lot of that good stuff within the honey. And the list goes on, right? However, many people don't have that mindset of going into a supermarket and picking out the food that's best for them, right? Maybe they just buy whatever is in the supermarket unless you're trained to do so. With beef, a lot of people do that because they know that USDA Prime means better beef. Now, the same is true with coffee. Specialty coffee is the highest grade. Now, you won't find a specialty coffee logo on bags because the Specialty Coffee Association, the SCA, is not an entity that provides the certification for coffee, but it does certify individuals like myself. I'm certified by the Specialty Coffee Association to roast coffee, to analyze green coffee, brew coffee, sensory skills. So all these things amount to me being able to understand how coffee is processed and how it should be roasted in order for me to give you guys the best coffee possible. Now, I know I'm saying all of this, but what really goes behind the scenes? I'm going to try to summarize it as best I can. Keep in mind, when a coffee seed is planted on the ground, it takes 3 to 5 years to turn into a cherry, right? Once that cherry is ripe, that's when you start processing. That's 3 to 5 years to get a yield. That's a lot of work. Then you get a little coffee cherry that needs to be ripe and hand-picked in order for it to be specialty coffee grade. Whereas commodity coffee, and that's the new word today, commodity coffee, which is what you get on the supermarket, which is mass-produced, which you don't know where it's coming from or how it was processed, does not need to be hand-picked. They do what we call stripping, which is essentially, imagine there's a bunch of coffee cherries here. They may be ripe, maybe they're green and sour, they're not ready to be picked. They do something like this. They grab it and they just pull it out and all these cherries fall into a little bucket, and that's called stripping. And even worse, there's large machines that go ahead and do this in a massive scale. Some of them even shake the trees and all the cherries fall down, and those are the cherries that get processed, regardless of if they are ripe or not. So number one difference right there is the fact that with specialty coffee, every single coffee cherry has been picked by hand. Another thing to keep in mind is the type of coffee bean. Generally speaking, there are two types, Arabica and Robusta. Arabica is what you're looking for. It is the best type of bean to get the specialty coffee out of. Every single specialty coffee out there is going to be Arabica. It doesn't mean that every single Arabica coffee is going to be specialty coffee, right? And Robusta is another type of bean. They both come from the same family. However, they many years of evolution split them both. And Robusta is a type of bean that grows pretty much everywhere, but it doesn't taste that well. So what are the two main differences? Arabica tastes amazing, but it's very, very, very hard to maintain, to make it grow. It does provide the benefit of tasting amazing, but a lot of more work needs to be done to make that coffee cherry into a ripe, beautiful coffee bean. Whereas with Robusta, it is much easier to maintain. It is much easier to make it grow. You can pretty much throw that thing in concrete and it'll start sprouting coffee cherries. So those are the two main things. And which one do you think is mass produced for consumers at the supermarket? And those very, very cheap bags of coffee you see at the supermarket. It's going to be Robusta. It's simple economics. There's nothing against, I'm not saying anything against Robusta, but I am saying is try to keep an eye out when you're purchasing coffee and saying, okay, this coffee bag is $5. I'm just going to get that. Wait, hold on. What am I getting? And am I getting Arabica or am I getting Robusta? That's another thing to keep in mind. Now, another part of this is the fermentation process. The fermentation is what's developing the sugar within the bean. And in order for you to get those sugars, you need to ferment the little coffee cherry. There are two processes, generally speaking, natural and washed, and a few in between. We're not going to get into that right now. But imagine you are trying to ferment a coffee that has no sugars, right? Or you're trying to ferment a cherry that's green. It means it's not ripe yet. It's not either red or yellow like a coffee cherry should be. What starts happening is that green coffee, they're not going to remove it if it's a commodity coffee, like for commercial use. They're going to process that anyway. And once it gets into your cup, that's when you start getting that bitter taste. So it all starts from the very beginning. Whereas with specialty coffee, this is all controlled. Every single cherry is going to be ripe. It's either going to be bright red or yellow, depending on the type of coffee. Now, this is something you need to keep in mind because whenever you're consuming a mass-produced product, that's what you're paying for. You're paying for low quality and you're paying for coffee that's going to be bitter once you taste it, which leads to you adding sugar and cream and milk in order for you to hide that bitterness within the coffee. Now, once the coffee is fermented, it's been dried out, and it's ready to ship, people like us receive it. Now, the coffee farmers are smart. They know how to divide the good quality coffee they produce with the bad quality coffee. The good quality coffee, out of those batches, you get smaller sections called the specialty coffee batches, which we receive. That's the coffee that we analyze to make sure it's actually specialty grade. And how do we do it? We analyze things such as size, because we want to make sure that coffee beans are the same size once they're roasted, just to guarantee that uniformity. A very large bean is going to roast slower than a small bean, and you can't have that inconsistency because you're gonna get darker roasted small beans and lighter roasted big beans. You don't want that with specialty coffee. You want consistency. Another thing to look out for is the humidity levels within the bean. In order for it to be specialty grade coffee, it needs to be between a certain range. It's maybe 8.5%, 10% humidity within the bean. So depending on the process, if it's, for example, a natural process or a washed process, you're gonna want different levels of humidity. Another thing to look out for is defects. This is very important. Out of 200 grams of green coffee, we analyze for what we call primary and secondary defects. So I'll give you a few examples. If it is a 200 gram sample and we find a little rock, that is a primary defect. So that batch is no longer considered specialty. Specialty coffee will have no such things, no twigs or rocks or pebbles or anything of the sort. Secondary defects, we can allow up to 5 secondary defects, which is a broken green bean, for example. That happens. And that little broken green bean would fall into a category of a secondary defect. It doesn't affect the taste, but it does affect the visuals. Now with specialty coffee, no primary defects. With commodity coffee, it's free for them to choose. There is no sort of analysis that goes behind it. Now, once that green coffee passes those tests at the very beginning, then we roast it. And once we roast it, we let it out for a few days in order for it to degas, and then we grind it, and then we cup it, we taste it, just to make sure it is actually high quality coffee. This is where all these certifications come into play. As I mentioned earlier, we're certified by the Specialty Coffee Association. When we say our coffee is specialty grade, it's not a name that we're throwing out there. We actually have a level of respect that goes behind the process of roasting coffee. That's why we got certified. So in order for us to determine if it is specialty coffee, we need to follow all of these guidelines, and then we have to cup it. And then and only then, if we determine that the coffee is high quality in terms of taste and complexity and has different tasting notes, then and only then do we add it into our category of coffee to sell. That's us. That's what we do here at Syzygy Coffee. There are other brands out there that call themselves specialty coffee, and unfortunately, it is damaging the specialty coffee name. Again, since there is Specialty Coffee Association doesn't provide a sort of a badge or a certification for bags to be considered a specialty, there's really nothing you can do. The only thing you can do is taste it. Taste the coffee, and if it's good, and if it's complex, and it tastes amazing, they are most likely true specialty coffee roasters. Now, what happens with commodity roasted coffee? They are mass produced. They are roasted generally to a very, very high roast profile because that hides defects. That's another thing that I need to talk about. When you're buying commodity coffee or very cheap coffee out there, it's almost always going to be dark roast. Ever wonder why? Because dark roasted coffee hides defects. What I mean by defects, high profile roasted coffee is gonna taste almost the same regardless of what happens, because you're essentially roasting it to sort of a charcoaly state. It's all gonna start tasting the same afterwards. So if you have very high quality coffee and very low quality coffee, if you roast it to a light or medium light roast and you taste them, the high quality coffee is gonna taste amazing, smooth, fruity, acidic, whereas the cheap coffee is gonna taste horrible. You're gonna wanna throw it out and spit it out. But if you take those two coffees and roast it to a very high profile, like very dark roast, both are actually gonna start tasting the same. So the geniuses over at mass-produced coffee roasteries, all they do is roast these coffees to a very high profile, very, very high temperatures, very dark roast, because they'll say, yeah, this is how it's supposed to taste. And it's true, but you're actually drinking very, very bad quality coffee. So next time you're in the supermarket, look for that. Is it a dark roast? And they'll hide it saying espresso roast, which is just like a made up marketing term. The reason they do that is because people like espresso, people like dark roast, and in reality, what they're buying is commodity and low quality coffee. Now, there is another thing I wanted to talk about, which is the environmental cost. As you could imagine, commodity coffee is going to have a larger carbon footprint than specialty coffee. Specialty coffee gets handpicked, no machines. It means that every single cherry is going to be ripe when handpicked. It's a visual process. It's a literal person, coffee farmer, picking the little cherry from the coffee tree, and then those are the cherries that you're actually tasting when you buy specialty coffee, at least from us, from here at Syzygy. With commodity coffee, that's not the case. As we said earlier, you get big machines that are spewing gases into the atmosphere, that are shaking the trees, that are taking all the green coffee cherries that would have otherwise been ripe cherries, but they don't care. And that's what they're roasting, and that's what they're consuming. And as you might have guessed, during the 365 days of the year, people are consuming coffee. That means that they have to do this all year long. So there's a lot of damage to the environment. Now, I'm not gonna deep dive into this. That is another rabbit hole I don't wanna go into, but there is an environmental impact when you are buying commodity coffee versus specialty coffee. As with all things in life, you know, things that are mass produced are usually bad for the environment, and things that are more specialty grade are generally less damaging to the environment. And hey guys, look, at the end of the day, this is just information for you guys to sort of understand where specialty coffee roasters put their price tag at. The profit margin on specialty coffee is actually not that high. You'd be surprised. Yes, specialty coffee is more expensive, but you are getting more bang for your buck. You're getting a better product. You're getting hard work and dedication with specialty coffee. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that something that is going to be cheaper to produce is going to be a little bit more damaging to your health. Especially if you are an avid coffee drinker. If it's something you drink every day, twice a day, 3 times a day, just think about the things that you're putting into your body. You are what you eat, and with specialty coffee, it's no different. Specialty coffee, that is our guarantee. It's always going to be the highest quality of coffee that we can provide. And we are always working to make price go lower. We offer free shipping, for example, with our coffee subscription. Or right now, I think if you consume, I think it's $30 or more in Syzygy, that also translates to free shipping. So just putting it out there. I hope this video is a little bit more informative to you guys. It sort of paints a brighter picture to let you guys know what goes behind specialty coffee and why it costs what it costs. It's not that we are price gouging or anything of the sort, but if you ever get the opportunity to try commodity coffee or the coffee you're used to drinking and drink it next to specialty coffee, both at the same temperature, both with the same brewing method, and you blindfold yourself and you taste it, you will immediately, I guarantee, I promise, you will immediately tell the difference. Because I know you guys, if you are watching this, you are at least interested in what's going on, right? So if you're watching this, you at least have an idea of what coffee should taste like. And I guarantee you, I'll put money on the table, just ensure that if you do that test, you will 100% know what the difference is. And you'll almost, without a shadow of a doubt, will choose specialty coffee over commodity. And that's where the price goes. That is what you're paying for. That is why specialty coffee costs what it costs. If you like this type of content, I know this one went a little bit longer than usual. Drop a comment, let me know your thoughts, give a like, subscribe to the channel. We're very active on other social media platforms. We are on TikTok, we are on X or Twitter, however you want to call it. Of course, here on YouTube, we are Instagram. Where else? Yeah, I think that's about it. Comment below, say whatever you want, give us your opinion. Am I wrong? Am I making stuff up? Do you agree or disagree with anything I said? Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.